Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Neurodivergent Thinkers podcast. This is part 2 of our last episode that was based off of Asiatu's Instagram post. I'll let my friend Drina actually explain more about that.
Okay, hi everyone. Here's a recap, and for those of you who don't know Asiatu, they use they/them pronouns and are a Black, trans, queer, multiple neurodivergent, autistic, abolitionist, educator, and coach. They're really, really great, and I love all the content that they have created. They educate me every day, so we'll make sure to link their Instagram when we post this video, and please go follow them.
All right, a special thanks to Asiatu for letting us use their post in our discussion forum podcast. So I'm going to just go ahead and read their first slide of the second part of their post, and we will respond and react and discuss. So they wrote, I personally find it autismophobic for people to be so uncomfortable with the reality that autism in this dystopian nightmare is indeed a superpower, in that we generally tend to be the antithesis of colonizer standards. And I'll just continue actually to the second part here. We autistics, number one, see patterns, allowing us to see past the matrix and superficial illusions. Number two, we socialize with authenticity and depth while not adhering to hierarchies. And number three, we communicate via information, so we tend to negate the lies of society while often being realists. So Jessica and Drina, how do you feel about Asiatu's points?
I think it's very accurate. I'm at least to my situation, I can be very blunt. I often see the world for how it is, and I don't sugarcoat things. I mean, like, honestly, people they're always talking about sugarcoating and making things seem better than they are and always being positive about things. But I see things for what they are, whether they're positive or they're negative, and I'm going to let you know. And people find that threatening in society because, well, people don't like having the truth thrown in their face that blatantly.
Touching up to what Jessica said, I really agree with what Asiatu said, in that they make a really good point that because due to neurotypical social norms and the variety of rules that they have, autistic people and neurodivergent people, they don't see or understand those rules in the same way. So we approach it bluntly, and we approach it with being directly honest. And touching on what Jessica said, and also we don't sugarcoat it, in that we don't go, oh, we need to protect this person's feelings. We just go, no, here's how I feel about you, or this is how I feel about the situation. I feel, because of who we are and being autistic, we want you to not only see our opinion, because our opinions are important, but we also let you know exactly where we stand. And I feel like if neurotypical people directly would let us know where they stand, it would be a lot easier. Because often someone will say one thing and then completely mean the other thing. And I can never tell when they're trying to be nice and sugarcoat it, or they're being direct, and that can be really, really hard and frustrating.
Yeah, and do you find it challenging then to communicate with neurotypicals sometimes, because it sounds like if I can just elaborate, it sounds like what you're saying is that you're very honest and clear and realistic in the way that you communicate. There's no sugarcoating or fluffiness put around or trying to navigate people's feelings. It's just a very honest, clear, direct way of communicating. Do you find that challenging in communicating with neurotypicals who are used to almost the opposite, really?
For sure. I feel like often autistic people can often be seen as rude, or they just don't understand what the neurotypical social norms are, which is true. And so, because of those social norms that are never laid out to you as a neurodivergent person, as an autistic person, we can clash because our rules are different from the rules that neurotypicals seem to innately understand.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so, and when you're communicating in the way that you're communicating, as you're saying, sometimes neurotypicals or people can possibly take offense or have their feelings hurt. That's never necessarily the intention, or maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. What is the intention in that form of communicating? So it's not usually the intention to like hurt someone's feelings, right? It's to like communicate authentically and honestly with them.
Yeah, I also feel though when autistic people and neurotypicals also connect when it comes to bullying is a neurotypical won't try to sugarcoat how they feel about an autistic person either. We're just bluntly told, "Oh, you're different. Stay away." And so they want us to sugarcoat how they feel, but they never seem to show the same respect in that. They just go off on us. And it's not that I want them to sugarcoat it. I just would like them to realize that they don't offer the same respect as we're supposed to show them in society.
Jessica, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I've dealt with that my whole life. You know, we're supposed to mask, we're supposed to show these people we're supposed to talk like them, we're supposed to act like them, you know. But really, they know we're different. They act like we're different. So eventually I just decided to stop masking, to stop talking like they would want me to talk to them. Like, there's no point. I'm gonna be true to myself. And it's honestly exhausting to try to even like talk or like sugarcoat everything. It's like, no, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it sounds like it takes a lot of like mental gymnastics to do that, because that's not the social curriculum that you picked up on or you aligned with growing up. And where it was more so like communicating via information, authenticity, depth, like honesty, just transparency. And so having to sugarcoat things or tiptoe around subjects takes a lot of mental gymnastics to do as well.
To me, it's essentially lying, pretty much. Almost like, yeah. I mean, honestly, everyone should be able to speak their minds in the public, and people should be able to just stop what they're doing and just listen. Like, if people listened more, I bet half the problems we have would be solved. But instead, people don't listen, and they'd rather just stick to their norms and societal norms, and it's something that needs to change.
Yeah, and Asiatu mentions this in not only this post, but mentions being authentically yourself and how important that is, instead of just adhering to neurotypical standards. And I really like that that's something that they really emphasize on.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Totally. And it sounds like, to go back to what you were saying as well, Jessica, it sounds like people need to listen more without making it about themselves or taking it personally or listening with their ego, right? It's more so listening with an open heart and just to hear and see the person who's speaking.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Awesome.
think that that statement is something that can be used for not only the autistic community, but for so many other communities. It's important. E- Like even I have to work on it because we live in a society that taught these rules that you end up just learning along the way. It's important to remember, hey, you're not part of that community. You
Yeah,
need to listen to those who are.
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
Right. All right, so we'll cover the next few slides here. I'm going to read them and then we can again discuss and share our perspectives. So Asiatu writes, our very nature is the antithesis of capitalism in numerous ways. This world would be a significantly better place if society adopted our ways of perceiving the world and treated each other as we do, with a community mindset, equity void of hierarchies, and protection of the most vulnerable. To me, autism as a superpower isn't limited to capitalistic validations. To me, perceiving autism as a superpower is equivalent to me saying Black is beautiful, Black and proud, or how we Black people refer to each other as royalty, sovereign kings and queens. Valuing capitalistic standards of intellect, productivity, and or equating it to worth is absolutely oppressive and toxic AF. But perceiving ourselves as better than the harmful norms of colonization, as its antithesis, as us having superpowers, I see absolutely nothing wrong with that.
I really agree with what Asiatu says, what they say about capitalism and autism being a superpower. What the way I interpreted it was as because capitalism likes to see anything that's different and make sure whatever is different is known, by saying autism is a superpower, they're continuing to alienate neurodivergent people from society. They're continuing to say, you're too different to be a part of us. And that's something that society as a whole really needs to work on with so many communities.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, definitely. But I also see another flip side to this where they take maybe one person's ability to hyper focus on a certain task and they milk it for all it's worth and they stick you in an office and they expect you to do that same thing all day, minimal pay, and they think that's okay. In fact, I actually know someone who did a job and they were really good at it, and he was paid less than minimum wage, which was wrong. But yeah, and all right.
That's okay. No, I hear what you're saying, Jessica and Drina, and it kind of sounds like viewing autism as a superpower, as in how can we use autistic individuals to benefit us economically or work towards our capitalistic goals is not the superpower. Like, yes, autistic people can have abilities to really hyper focus on things and be really keen experts on various areas. However, the point is that like the superpower is not how you can contribute to capitalism and economy and making somebody else money or whatever. It's that you can actually see past those capitalistic norms in the way you process the world and process information, and you can see past those oppressive norms clearly. And
It's
that,
also a good,
go ahead, Gina.
oh, sorry.
Mhm.
It's also a good reminder that autism is a spectrum. It's not one linear line. It's so many different things. And by saying one person can hyperfocus and putting all of neurodivergent and autistic people in a box really, really limits us, because there's so many stereotypes about autistic people being savants or everyone's good at math. But in reality, a lot of autistic people aren't. And viewing autistic people, like you said, as something that can only be made money for somebody else also our hinders ourselves as or hinders our worth as people. It just sees us as um
Like, how can you benefit?
yeah, I can't remember the word for it, but as um just things you can throw away and replace, not as humans that have our own personality and our own skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Jessica, did you want to follow up on anything that Drina said?
I mean, yeah, I mean, we're not assets for somebody to extort or use or to gain any capital, or we're human beings, and just because our minds work differently doesn't mean that you can treat us differently from the rest of society, and we deserve equal rights along with everyone else.
Absolutely. All right, and to finish off the tail end of our discussion here, for anyone listening, whether that be parents, teachers, educators, neurodivergents, neurotypicals, anyone tuning in and listening to our little discussions, here are some takeaways that we've gathered from our discussions of Asiatu's posts.
My biggest takeaway is that it is important to be authentic to yourself. And to any parents or caregivers out there, remind your kids to just be true to who you are. And it doesn't matter what other people think, because they're not you and they don't get to dictate how you are. And just because you're different doesn't mean you're any less.
I think my biggest takeaway from this is also remembering that listening to a community that's being affected, and if you're not a part of that community, that it's important to step back and listen. This doesn't just go for the autistic community, but so many other communities. And like I said before, it's something I'm working on. And I really want to be somebody who listens to others and listens and learns. So it's a good reminder that if I want people to listen to me as an autistic advocate, I've also got to hold myself to that same standard and learn and listen when it's not a community that I'm a part.
Absolutely. Really great point. And I think that the takeaway that I would talk about on from my perspective, just in terms of a consultant and a parent coach, would be for parents to understand that there's nothing wrong with your autistic child. There's no need to fix them. They are perfectly beautiful and unique the way that they are. And I think it's important to understand that the way they are processing information and the world and the way that they are communicating is also just as valuable as the way that neurotypicals process the world and communicate. And we I always caution parents against trying to shame their child or train them out of thinking the way that they think or processing or communicating the way that they communicate. There are definitely skills that we can all build on and things that we can be aware of, like perspective taking. But I think that if I were to give parents advice, it would be that there is so much value in the way that your child processes information and communicates that differs from neurotypicals, and we need all different types of people in this world. So that would be my takeaway.
I'd also like to thank everybody who's watching this video. If you have any questions or you have any suggestions for upcoming videos, please write them in the comments. We're always happy to answer questions or make videos. And thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll hopefully see you again very soon. So goodbye from me, Sophie.
Bye.
Bye, and Drina and Jessica.